Now, teaching the art of business to artists trying to make it in a changing economy. NewsHour economics correspondent Paul Salman has the story, part of his reporting on making sense of financial news.
The economic state of the arts. If you think the economy as a whole is on shaky footing, you should look at what's going on in the classical performing arts. More and more artists, ever more highly skilled, fewer and fewer jobs, ever more poorly paid. So, performing arts schools, including the most famous of them all, Juilliard, are taking a new approach.
Support our friend Peter.
Now don't panic. Juilliard isn't hitting you up for money, nor is PBS interrupting this story with yet another pledge drive. Yes, Bill Baker, former president of New York's public television station, WNET, is a pitchman, but since retiring from TV and knowing a thing or two about raising money, especially for the arts,
More.
he has taught Juilliard's very first course in the basics of business for performing artists.
It's like suddenly trying to teach them Chinese. They'd never thought of numbers being associated with what they do.
But is their attitude towards business also that it's kind of
Dirty. Yeah, there is a little resistance to that. And when I say the performing arts is a business, a number of my students recoil. A business? This is art. And I try to explain that yes, it is an art, but it also is a business. And they have to understand that if they're going to make it. It's that simple.
Juilliard now gives out grants to promote entrepreneurialism. At this meeting, last year's winners were coaching the current crop of applicants.
There is some sort of connection that you can make, and that's networking.
John Brancy and Tobias Greenhall are founders of Operation Superpower, an opera for kids with an anti-bullying message that these two are marketing as a school assembly program.
Our superpowers are opera singing, and we teach the kids how to discover their superpowers. So everybody's a superhero. That's our message.
Give us a snippet of the superhero opera.
We heard your voices,
A call for heroes,
a cry for hearts of courage,
a hopeful message,
hearts of
a
courage.
hopeful message.
That's just a little bit of it.
And though the anti-bully boys are a hard act to follow, Kristen Olsen stands out with what well may be a first for a Juilliard grad, a manufacturing business, 17th century manufacturing.
I specialize in historical oboe reeds for people who are interested in Baroque oboe and other types of older oboes.
I mean, how much money can you make in a year?
Millions and millions of dollars.
What would be a more realistic guess?
I mean, paying rent is a pretty good goal, and so far it's pretty close.
Now, of course, it's not exactly news that musicians moonlight to support their art. Bach doubled as a church cantor. Berlioz wrote music criticism. Brahms performed in bars and brothels. And virtually every famous musician you ever heard of has taught. We live in a much richer world, however, and Juilliard is more selective than Harvard. Yet gone are the salad days when its students could graduate, sign with an agent, and expect the gigs to just roll in. Instead, the best young performing artists in the world are now expected to create their own jobs, fashion their own careers.
Can you make a living these days as a musician without significant entrepreneurial effort?
I don't think so.
Conductor Diane Wittry.
But the challenge is how do you balance, doing marketing for yourself and all these other things and still keeping up your art form? How do you make a website? How do you make a demo tape for an audition? I think the schools are now beginning to expand the training and realize that entrepreneurialism is the answer for the future.
Easier said than done.
It is a little bit disheartening, but even if you do have that job, there's so many different things you have to do.
But at Juilliard these days, they don't have to go it alone.
I came to Juilliard as a high school kid, wanted to play new music. My goal in life was just to play new music.
To percussionist Alex Lepowski, that's classical music being written today. So Lepowski got together with like-minded students.
And it soon became evident that We weren't just starting a band. To be successful in this, we soon realized that we were starting a business.
A business now called the Thalia Ensemble, which performs contemporary music concerts here and abroad. Lepowski was one of Bill Baker's first students.
That sort of fire was lit, and before we knew it, we were a full-blown business. It's all we do now. You know, we used to practice 6 hours a day and email for 2. Now maybe we email for 6 and practice for 2.
Entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity without regard for resources currently controlled.
Meredith Hodges isn't an artist herself. She worked in finance, went to Harvard Business School, where an MBA retails for a cool $250,000. She's now executive director of Galim, a small modern dance company based in Brooklyn, whose weekly salaries are firmly lodged in the 3 figures. But Hodges thinks her business education was worth what she paid.
I use today the things I learned every single day. Sometimes it's soft skills, negotiation, personnel, and sometimes it's really specific frameworks for opportunity selection in terms of how to make the company grow quickly, grow sustainably, cash management, and those kind of entrepreneurial and startup skills that we learned at school. I would be lost running the company without it.
Yeah, it's like a startup.
Even company founder and choreographer Andrea Miller can now sound more like a business major than the Juilliard dance student she once was.
I think I have the skill set and the discipline to be able to do things outside of this artist box because of what I'm asked to do in building this company. Fundraising, development, marketing. This is a business to me. I'm building a small business.
But just as in the days of Bach, Berlioz, and Brahms, today's arts institutions need patrons to keep them afloat.
You can never make enough with ticket sales and touring alone. Even at these low salary rates for the company, the time it takes to make a new work of art is extraordinary, and the costs of the production elements are extraordinary.
In other words, while these new businesses may have a lot in common with other startups, at the end of the day, they're strictly not for profit. And that means perfecting the art of the pitch.
I try to explain to them that if they go to an event or a party and they perform, and everybody applauds, and then they go back exhausted into their dressing room, that's a big mistake. They have to come out and associate with the people that were applauding to them.
It is then, says Bill Baker, who ran WNET for 20 years, that an economics mindset can make all the difference.
Mostly because even a billionaire can't fathom someone who is that disciplined, who is that gifted. And that's where the magic comes in. That's where these students don't often realize that they have magic.
And that they can translate that magic.
They can translate that magic into support.
In this day and age, perhaps even more than in a very long time, they had darn well better.